Hello guys, welcome back. I came across this game a while back, and how I came across it was an argument between Gohil and the rest of the top players in Kenya. And Gohil said that he can play 1b3 and beat anyone. Actually, he was saying that the top 10 players in Kenya can play 1b3 and beat anyone. I was trying to emphasize that maybe the openings are not that important in chess. But then this was a game that Ben Magana sent immediately after that comment. And Ben Magana was the one who commented that the person he played against was a top 10er, an Olympiad who played 1b3. And he also mentioned that the guy was 2100 plus. So I can let you speculate. You can maybe tell me who you think it is, but let's dive straight into the game and look at it. So 1b3 was played as advertised. And Ben Magana replied with pawn to e5. So the thing about 1b3 that I never understand is why would you allow black to get a lot of play in the center? Because I also play 1e5 in response to 1b3 most of the time. Also 1b5 works. Everything works, I think. You can play knight f6, knight to c6. You can play maybe something like pawn to d6 or even bishop to d6. At some point, castle, bring the bishop back to e7 or something like that, develop, bring your other bishop out. And with black you get a lot of options. You can really freestyle with it and have a good game. So I never really understand why people play 1b3, but to each their own. So here bishop to d2 was played, bishop to b2 rather, knight to c6 as advertised, pawn to c4, and now knight to f6. Pawn to e3 was played, probably preparing some central push. But here Ben Magana replies with pawn to d5, attacking the center. Pawn takes, knight takes, and now pawn to a3, stopping any crazy ideas with any of these knights jumping onto b4, which might cause a lot of problems. Maybe if the bishop lands on f5, the c2 square is really weak. And at some point, maybe you want to put your queen on c2. You don't really want any knight jumps into b4 pushing your queen away. So a3, a prophylactic move, a good move. And now bishop to d6, pawn to d3, and here castles was played by black. Another idea maybe was playing something like queen to f6. And what you want to do is place your queen on g6 and just stop any form of development on the king side, on white's king side rather, because let's say they play something like maybe if they don't play g3, because g3 should be the move that should be played here so that you can develop your bishop to g2, and you see that this is forcing white to develop their bishop on a very uncomfortable square, because I'm guessing white wants to go bishop to e2, knight to f3, and they want to castle kingside when their pawn structure is still intact. So here if they play something like pawn to g3, later on in the game you might have ideas of playing h5, h4, and chipping away at this white's king structure, white's kingside pawn structure rather. And here black can play anything. Black and castle kingside, black and castle queenside. It's entirely safe, because once you develop the bishop, maybe play something like not bishop to f5, but maybe bishop to e6 looks really good. We can even castle queenside and start our kingside attack on with h5 and h4. So queen to f6 is really good. They have to play g3. Let's say they play something like knight to f3. Here you can even play queen to g6. I think is perfectly okay, because then the bishop now, if there is any form of like development to this bishop, you can just capture the pawn on g3. If they play something like pawn to g3, you can capture on g2 rather. If they play pawn to g3 themselves, then you can start your kingside attack with pawn to h5, h4. So everything is okay with on this front. So queen to f6 would have been an interesting try and an interesting sort of idea to watch out for when you play such openings or when you have such kind of positions. This can arise from a variety of openings. So castles by black was played, and now knight to f3, pawn to f5 by Ben Magana. You can see what I really meant when I started the analysis of this game, because black now has a lot of play in the center. You have a lot of control in the center. Your knights are beautifully placed. You have a very nice bishop on d6. Your other bishop on c8 will be developed with little to no effort. And when you look at white, on the other hand, white is still uncastled. The bishop is still on f1. This knight and this bishop, they just look really stunted. They don't look good if you compare them with the other pieces, with black's pieces rather. And you can see what you're giving black in exchange for playing a very offbeat opening. I don't really understand the idea. So pawn to f5, bishop to e2, and now bishop to d6, just continuing with bishop to e6 rather, just continuing with development. And now knight b to d2, queen to knight b to d2 is a good move, because then it gives you ideas maybe of jumping with your knight to c4 at some point. Many ideas in this position. Knight to d2 is a very good developing move. Here you want to castle, you want to throw your knight to c4 at some point. You have to play something like pawn to b4, pawn to b5 will be good, before b5 rather. You want to castle, you want to any ideas that black has of striking in the center doesn't really work in this position, because you have a very comfortable pawn structure. It doesn't, I mean, with the knight on d2, it's doing a lot of control of the e4 square. So in any point, or at any point, Ben Magana or black in this point, in this game, I mean, anytime black tries to break out with any e4 ideas or something like that, you can just capture the center. You can play knight to c4, and your bishop on b2 now becomes a very powerful piece. So knight to so knight b to d2 was played, and now queen to e8, knight to c4 as we've analyzed, and now bishop to d7. The idea is the knight, both knights and the bishop are all staring at the e5 square, and see everything is attacking e5, and the only defenders we have of the e5 square are the knight and the bishop. So we need to move our bishop out of the way, and you can now see why queen to e8 was a good idea. It adds control of the e5 square. So bishop to d7 was played, and now queen to c2. And now queen to e7, h4. Okay, here I think h4 was, the thing is, if you're playing white in this position, you're not really comfortable, because then with white you really want to be very attacking and you want to like go all out. And you can see that in exchange of that offbeat opening that you played, you gave black everything that black would have wanted. Black has beautiful control of the center. Black has very well developed minor pieces. The rooks are connected, and you can see white still hasn't castled. We're moved 12 in, and white hasn't castled. So it isn't really that easy to play this position as white. And most of the time what people do when they have an uncomfortable position is they want to create chaos in the game. It's a good tactic, it's a good idea, because with chaos, I mean, you get a lot of play, people make mistakes, but then when you create the chaos, most of the time it's a double-edged sword. So you don't really want to do something like that at your own detriment, especially in such a position, such a very inferior position for white, because things can go south really quick. So here the better move may be castle instead of playing pawn to h4. And now you can see that after castling, you're still holding on. The ideas with this pawn breaks doesn't work, because if you play something like pawn to f4, we can play e4. And here arguably now white is the one controlling the game, because we've just immobilized this bishop on d6. We've moved this knight away from the center, and black doesn't have really any more pawn breaks left. And us, on the other hand, we have this idea of pawn to d4. We can support it, maybe play rook a to d1, then support this pawn to e4 idea, and we're now in business. So f4 doesn't work. And what about you? Because when you play something like castles, you want to analyze both pawn breaks and see if they work. So here we can just capture, no problem. And after they take back, we can play knight to d2, and we have a lot of pressure. We have a lot of pressure on this e4 pawn. Bishop to f5 doesn't do anything to defend this position, because then we can just capture the knight on d6, then play something like bishop to c4, and we are really controlling the game. So here castling, I think, would have been the better option, with black playing maybe something like queen to e6, pawn to a6, even preparing something like pawn to b5. The game continues. So here, instead of castling, the player, white, played pawn to h4, trying to control, to create some chaos. But now the game is slowly now leaving white's hand. So here pawn to b5 was played. So many ideas in the position, many other things can be played, but even pawn to f4 works in this position, I think. But pawn to b5 works just as well, because now the other ideas with maybe pawn to f4 are very deep, but pawn to b5 is very, very straightforward. Here you want to play, if they move the knight away, you want to play something like maybe pawn to b4, or yeah, many ideas in this position. So knight takes on d6 was played, and now c takes d. Pawn to d4, trying to chip away at the center, and now just rook a to c8, because we are not really worried about them capturing the center. We can even capture back with our knight, create some tactics on the way. And now queen to d2, moving away from the x-ray of this rook. Now here pawn to e4 was played, moving the knight away. Knight went back to g1, and you can now see that slowly but surely white is now losing the game, because if you're forced to take your pieces back to the starting square, it's not really a good sign. Pawn to f4, breaking the center even further. Now bishop takes on b5, because I mean, if you're dying, you die on a full stomach. F takes on e, f takes e3, f takes e3, and now knight to b4. Very good sacrifice of the knight, because then we're not really sacrificing, because the bishop is attacking the other bishop on b5. This knight looks really good on b4. Many good ideas in the position. And now bishop to c4, saving the bishop and trying to create a pin on this knight. In any case, we move this knight from b4, because again, it's being attacked. We're going to lose the other knight on d5 with check. So Ben Magana realized this and played rook takes on c4. A very good move, sacrificing the rook for the bishop and the attack. And now after pawn takes rook, knight to d3 check was played, and here you're losing. So you can try and play anything. I mean, I don't really see what you can really play in this position. If you move the king, again, rook to f2 is a very creative idea. We have ideas with the bishop. We can play the other knight in. So many ideas are coming in. Again, if you play something like king to e2, it's a mate. It's a checkmate. I think there's a checkmate here with rook to f2 check. Then after king to d1, even knight takes e3 is an idea. I think rook takes queen at the very least, and you can see that black is having a very, very comfortable game. So after knight to d3 check, queen takes d3 was played by white, and now pawn takes d3, and now you can see that the queen is just eyeing the pawn on e3. You cannot really wait around. So here white played queenside castle, queen takes on e3 was played, king to b1, and now Ben Magana moved his knight out of the way. Knight to f3 was played, knight takes on c4, and white resigned in this position. So you can see that playing, not just, playing any opening doesn't really mean that you can win the game. It isn't that easy. You have to be very, very careful with the openings that you choose to play. Here white resigned because there's nothing left to do. I mean, we can play pawn to pawn to d2. We can literally play king to h8 and still win this position. It's that winning. So you can see that it doesn't really necessarily mean that if you play anything you can beat your opponents. I am a big advocate for people playing normal chess openings, or the openings that have been studied for years and years. Just playing theory. I love theory and I love openings, and this is why I don't really appreciate that much when people play offbeat openings like pawn to b3, but to each their own. Again, you can see what Ben Magana did in this game with just freestyling. Really, you just follow normal chess principles, and slowly but surely you outplay white. Because white, again, you have to be really really accurate, and you have to go for an all-out attack against black. So that was the game. You can tell me who you think the top tenor, the Olympiad, is. You can throw your suggestion, or maybe your guesses in the comments, and we'll look at them. Most comments wins. The comment of most likes wins. So yeah, that was the game. We're back now. We're going to be recording more games and analyzing them. I have this game from Rashid Ravat that he played in Uganda. That will be the next game. So tune in. Make sure you like and subscribe.